cozies have not done great for me in the past. That right there was some of the most impressive character work I read all freaking year. Was original, was uniquely done. I literally read the author's note and I knew I was gonna love this. Hey y'all, it's Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today. And for this video, we're gonna be talking about my biggest surprises of 2025. Alright, so before we get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, and you gotta tell me in the comments what is the most surprising book you read in 2025. I talked about earlier this week that unfortunately I had a shocking number of disappointments, but thankfully I did also have a fair amount of surprises this year. Usually I combine these two into one video, but I had so many of both that they each get their own video. And I'm much more excited to talk about these because obviously I actually liked these books. Saying that these were surprises doesn't mean I went in thinking I wasn't gonna like them, but I might have gone in with mid expectations and ended up loving these books. Or I never heard anybody talk about them, and now I can't stop talking about them. So diving into these, starting at the top is Dooku, Jedi Lost by Cavan Scott. Now, I've come to trust Cavan Scott because I do feel like majority of the 5 stars I've given in this universe have come from Cavan Scott's work. This one specifically is actually an audio drama. I always recommend listening to the audiobooks of these if you have the ability to, because they're so well produced. And though Dooku is a character I obviously have seen plenty of, I don't feel like I've gotten a lot about his background in prior works I've experienced. This one though, we get so much character exploration around him, and it is phenomenally well done. It is so well done that there are elements of Dooku's character that you can actually see in his Padawan, and that Padawan's Padawan, and that Padawan's Padawan. Even through his character, you can see how his Padawans are very similar, but also the differences that come from them based in things they took from Dooku. Like the Jedi that Rael Averross became in comparison to the Jedi that Qui-Gon Jinn became. I am, of course, also a giant stan for Ventress, so I loved getting to explore a little bit more of her background here as well, and everything we learned was so fascinating, and I really enjoyed having that background whenever I dived into her book Dark Disciple. I love Ventress. But this one, again, I was so caught off guard because Dooku is a character that like I've always known about. I mean, he's interesting, but he's never been one that I've especially loved. This book though was so phenomenally done. There's a lot that you get to learn about the Jedi Order, and like I said, from Dooku's character and the questions that he raises, the experiences he has while being in the Order, you get to better understand the character he does end up becoming in some of the future installments and some of the films. That right there was some of the most impressive character work I read all freaking year. After that one, I gotta say After Hours on Milagro Street by Angelina and Lopez, also for character work. This is a great representation of an unlikable character that you still root for the entire time. I did not always like Alex. In fact, she was really frustrating at times. She could actually come across kind of grating. I was really getting fed up with the way she kept putting her foot down or putting her foot in her mouth when it came to Jeremiah, the love interest, and also the way she kept impeding her own relationships with her family members. But the way Lopez explores her character and then allows her the room to grow and improve throughout the story is great. That right there is part of the reason I can't stop thinking about this book. But I also appreciated the way the author ended up utilizing Mexican history in Middle America and working that into the story as well. It was very interesting. I think you could tell she was actually mixing two things that she herself is very passionate about and putting them together in a wonderful book that I highly, highly recommend. Next up is one that I feel like I haven't stopped talking about the fact that it surprised me so much, and that would be Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. I feel like thrillers have really been letting me down lately. Apart from this, like I can't think of the last thriller I read that really knocked my socks off, but this one was original, was uniquely done. I thought it was actually very clever in how the author essentially worked out a crime and then told us the story in reverse. I also thought having the time travel element was really clever because it brought up unique issues that I don't think you could really have in other circumstances. If you haven't heard me say already, I really liked this one. I'm definitely intrigued to try out more from this author. As I mentioned in my new author audit, I unfortunately haven't really heard great things about the other books she's come out with since. So I'm gonna keep my eye on this author, but I'm also gonna keep my ear to the ground and see what other people are saying about her work. After that, I have The Lady Sparks of Flame by Elizabeth Everett. This is one of those where I've never heard anybody talk about this author, and she may be a new favorite for me. I read this one for Buns and Roses earlier this year. I'll put a link to my playlist up above if you don't know what I'm talking about. Loved this one. Another where we have an unlikable character, and it's actually really interesting because this is technically the second series in this universe that Everett has written, and Phoebe, our female main character here, is actually a villain character in the first series. Seeing as how I didn't have that background, I initially went in, expecting to like Phoebe, but the more we learn about her, the more I can see she's not perfect. She has definitely made some serious mistakes, and it's understandable of why other people don't like her, other people don't trust her, and you can see that Phoebe is kind of dealing with the repercussions of that herself. But she is so perfectly foiled by Sam, who is a really likable, sweet golden retriever of a man that just wants to bring light to her life and try to bring her out of the darkness that she is shutting herself into. I actually feel like this story doesn't have a ton of plot apart from the romance itself. A mystery does appear in the latter half of the book. So much of this is really just about the character work and the relationship between the two of them. There's also some mental health representation in this that I don't think I've ever seen talked about in other historical romances I've read. Granted, I don't have a ton of experience yet, but still. I'll actually read from the author's note at the beginning. To anyone who believes a young woman in an abusive household who self-harmed in the 1800s is historically inaccurate because there are no records of such incidents, I ask you to take a moment and consider whether the men with the stranglehold on recording and retelling our history would know or care about a very real, very frightening coping mechanism used overwhelmingly by adolescent women. I literally read the author's note and I knew I was going to love this, and I did. I cannot wait to read more from this author. I already have the first book in this series on my TBR, and I'm so excited to get to it. Then we have The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by by Becky Chambers. This is the first in the Wayfarer series, a cozy sci-fi series that was actually a Geek Squad pick for my Patreon book club. And I was really nervous about this one. Cozies have not done great for me in the past. Most cozy mysteries are meh or bad for me. Cozy fantasies, I am also usually rather meh. However, apparently putting it in a sci-fi universe just sort of works, or at least it has with Becky Chambers. I should probably try out some other cozy sci-fi and see if maybe this is just a fluke. That right there is a big reason of why I was so surprised by how much I enjoyed this book. I do feel like the second book is much better because it's got a tighter cast of characters. There's only really two main perspectives we alternate between, but even with the wider cast in this first book, I still came to care about every single member of this crew. I thought there were a lot of interesting elements presented with all of them. So many aspects of the universe are very intriguing. I really liked everything we learned about Chambers' universe here, and I'm also very hopeful that some of those elements will get brought back up in the future installments that I have yet to get to. The found family, absolutely adorable. It just feels like a warm hug. The romances that develop, super cute. All of the themes that are woven into this just worked very well for me. It was so up my alley. Like I said, I didn't expect that I was going to enjoy this as much as I did. The second book I loved even more, and I'm really hoping that I will love the third book just as much. Then I have one that was kind of a, honestly, really random pickup, but it worked out perfectly for a video in the future, and I actually ended up binging through this book. Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder. So I picked this up for like a horror book club, I think like pushing 2 years, maybe 3 years ago now, and unfortunately didn't end up actually reading it with the book club, so it just has been hanging out on my TBR. Well, I finally picked it up on a whim, and the synopsis of a woman turning into a dog was what initially put it on my radar and made me intrigued, but when I learned that motherhood was a really important element in the story, I wasn't sure if I was quite as excited, but I actually really enjoyed everything Yoder ended up presenting here and how she worked those elements into this interesting story of a woman who starts to give in to these more canine urges. The way she starts struggling with her identity, the competition that she feels there is between her and the other women around her, the other mothers around her, the complicated feelings that her new role as a mother elicits when it comes to her relationship with her partner, and also off of that, the complicated relationship she ends up having with her child as well. All of those things I felt were really well worked into the story here, even though, again, like the main idea of a woman turning into a dog, I wouldn't think would work with these topics, but it knocked my socks off. I ended up really loving it, and I'm very excited for you guys to see my feminist reading vlog that's going to be coming out in March, because I have so many thoughts about this one in it, and I actually would love to reread this and re-annotate it. And last but definitely not least is On a Sunbeam by Tillie Walden. Grabbed it because it was super chunky and it's a graphic novel, so I thought I could work through it really quickly for the D&D readathon. I did, and I ended up really enjoying it. I would say this is a new adult coming of age sapphic sci-fi story. It's been quite a while since I've really enjoyed a YA/new adult coming of age story like that doesn't have really anything else going on, but this was so good. I really enjoyed the character creation. I thought the little romance between Mia and her girlfriend Grace was super cute. The world building or universe building that's done in the sci-fi story is very intriguing. There's not a ton there, but what is very interesting. Found family is super freaking cute, and then the art is gorgeous. I really enjoyed the utilization of color that the author did here. At the start of the book, it's much more monochromatic, like there might be a color that's used, but it's only like one. But then as the story continues on, there's more color utilized. And it was also really cool how Walden used color to showcase different elements when it came to the setting, like the different worlds they were on, if we were in a flashback scene or not. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this one. I definitely want to try out more of Walden's work. I think all of her stuff kind of has a young adult coming of age feel to it, so I'm intrigued to see if I enjoy those just as much as I did this one. All right, and on that note, that's officially it for today, y'all. So thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let's leave a chess piece emoji in the comments. I have links to all of my socials, as well as a few ways you can support me down in the description. I come out videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!